My name is Judy Lee, and I have done graphic design for about 20 years, about 15 to 20 years. Interestingly enough, that's not my main job right now. So I actually had a career shift, but for many years I did that. And the first question that we'll just go over is, what do they do? Um, and there's different forms and I guess journeys and routes and applications of graphic design. Most familiar with most people now would probably be the web presence, everything from your app to websites, um, even email, spam mail. That's all done on the web. It's getting to be that is the main, I guess, avenue for graphic design. And then you also have things like print, which are logos, brochures, ads that go in actual, I guess, brochures or newspapers or magazines. And then you have packaging, everything you see in a store, whether you're at Sephora or whether you're at the grocery store, every product has packaging. So pretty much anything you see that has like type and a photo or a visual image in order to communicate. So these are some of the projects that I had worked on in the past. I worked on logos, I worked on ads, I worked on what they call stationery, which is what each company has. Now they mostly have digital stationery. Most people don't mail out things as much. The packaging, that Berlitz one, it was for how to learn a different language. And then I also did giftware for a season where I designed a lot of probably just, I don't know, for babies, for women, and for moms, anything that has to do with gifts. And then, so that's what I did for 15 to 20 years. And what does a regular day look like? Well, you're working in front of a computer for 8+ hours. And so if you're not careful, you'll, get those your neck and your shoulders will get really tired. You might get carpal tunnel, after working for many, many years. So you really have to be careful. You have to make sure that you're taking breaks and that your sitting arrangement is ideal. And then you also have meetings with clients or with your boss. You also brainstorm with other colleagues and you do research. So those are all the things that you normally do as a graphic designer. But mostly you're in front of the computer working.
Mm.
All right, training. Most graphic designers have a Bachelor of Fine Arts. Most of them, they go to a school like Pasadena Art Center. That's specifically an art school. There are some Cal State schools like Cal State Long Beach that has a really strong graphic design program. And but you don't necessarily have to have a degree. It's definitely helpful. But graphic design is a field where you can, if you can get your foot in the door, you can easily have a career in that. I myself, I did not have a graphic design degree. I graduated with an English major, and I was on my way of becoming a teacher, just like Mrs. Hahn. And then I got a detour and I was able to get some internships, get some sample works done for other people for free, kind of develop your portfolio. That's what you do as a graphic designer. You just have to have a good portfolio that you can show to a potential employer. And if they like your work, they will hire you. Training, definitely it's not just learning the software. I would say, this is probably like 60-40, 70-30. Like you need to know the theory of design, like what makes something look good, why, why we need to use a certain type of font. And being able to know those things is probably the most important. Even though I didn't get a graphic design degree, I did take a lot of graphic design classes on the side. And so those things kind of helped me. Sometimes people are just naturally gifted in saying, I think this is really good design. And you just have kind of that inkling for it, kind of like art. And then of course you have to learn the software. But in most cases, you take classes and you just learn as you practice and practice and practice. Skills needed. You definitely need to be creative. You need to be an idea maker. It's great if you're detail oriented because, if you're working on a project and you kind of gloss over the spelling of something and you just think someone else will proof it and catch it, you don't want to do that. You definitely want to be another person on that layer of proofreading and looking and making sure that all the details are aligned. I think thoughtfulness is a great skill to have. The more thoughtful you are, the more interesting your design will be because you're thinking about the audience and what you want to communicate. There's a lot of problem solving involved. You have to be diligent. Sometimes they're not going to get your first design that they see and say, I love it. They're going to say, no, I want you to tweak this. So then you go back and you tweak it. And then they'll say, well, we want you to tweak it again. And then so you go back and you tweak it again. So it takes, many multiple rounds sometimes to get a design approved. And then the ability to verbally communicate and present ideas. So that's not in all cases, but it definitely helps whether you're working with a client or you're presenting to a boss. You have to be able to communicate like how you came up with this design and what you think is important about it and why you think it would be effective. And if you're not used to presenting in front of people, taking speech classes or practicing in front of your family or your friends, all of that will help when you're in the graphic design field. Salary range. Okay, so I kind of put all the positions from when you start until I guess your ideal position would be a design director. That would be the other end of the spectrum, and kind of put a pay range, for each, I guess, position. So when you're looking for jobs, you can probably see, like, you're not going to start off as an art director right away. You kind of usually work up to that position. You usually start as a junior designer or a production specialist. And so it's, the salary is okay, but not super great, as, with some of the STEM fields. But you can definitely work your way up. Some of the design directors, they definitely make over six figures. And then sometimes, this is not your main job. Maybe you have a different main job, but you want to do some freelance jobs. And that's about the hourly rate that you can hire depending on your experience. And as in terms of advancement, you can go as far as you want, but the farther you go on that pay scale, position scale, there's more time commitment and more stress and pressures and ultimately burnout too. So, just know you're like, yeah, I'm going to work my way up and I'm going to be a design director in 5 years. And you could get there, but there is a lot of stress involved in that kind of position as well.
I would say this pays pretty low for a senior level designer. This is like teacher salary level, which is pretty
Yeah.
low.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, graphic design is pretty saturated. They're kind of a dime a dozen. And so the really good firms will pay higher, but they just figure like they'll try to keep you as low as possible until you get up into the upper management positions.
Mm.
Why I like this job, the pros and cons. It is creative, and in the beginning, that was a lot of fun to just sit around, brainstorm ideas, sketch. Usually, most people think like you have to learn how to draw to be a graphic designer. You don't, but you need to be able to have a sketch pad or a journal where you're just sketching out ideas or even just writing down words for ideas. And you know, that's pretty ideal. That's fun when you get to do that in the very beginning. Like I said, I love problem solving, and this field definitely requires some of that. When you see your work in a magazine or on a website or somewhere prominent, you do feel a sense of great pride in seeing that. The ability to work with others. Sometimes when you're in a design firm, you get to work with other designers, so you get to just bounce off ideas and you know, your opinions on things, and it's really great in that creative, collaborative environment. If you work freelance, it could be really flexible. Like you don't have to work 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. You can work whenever you want to, but also that means your pay is also unstable as well if you work in freelance. But if it's a side thing, you know, it's really flexible. And then it's a great way to enjoy the arts. I love the arts. I love going to museums. I love looking at type. All of those things excite me. So it's definitely a way to enjoy all of that. And then the cons. So just like in art, you're not creating art for yourself, you're creating art for someone else. So that means the person that you're creating the art for, you may not see eye to eye on what you think is great. You might come up with a great design and say, look, don't you love it? And they might be like, I don't know, I don't really like it. And you go, why not? And they go, I don't know, I just don't like it. Can you try again? You know, so that can be really frustrating because you're trying to find out what that other person, the client, is trying to achieve or what they want, and you're trying to figure that out sometimes when they're just being very vague. So that's a really a hard situation. You can work long hours. A lot of graphic design is fast paced and they wanted it yesterday, you know, so when you're about to go home and they're like, oh, the client came back and they want the next round, you know, by tomorrow. And you can't really say, I'm sorry, you can't, we're not going to do anything for that to the client who's supposed to be paying you. So then that means you have to stay that night and you have to like crank out something, you know, hopefully, and not have to work all night. But it can be very long hours in that sense. Um, it's great. It can be stressful. It's great when you're creating art for yourself because you can take as much time as you want. And then you can kind of say, I really love this. It brings me a lot of joy. But when you have to do it at a time limit, a deadline, then it can be stressful. You're like kind of forcing your brain to be creative when it's stressed out, and it doesn't want to be creative when it's stressed out. So that can be a really hard thing. You can have a boss looking over your shoulder. Some bosses, they kind of want to micromanage you. They should give you the freedom to do what you can do, but sometimes they're kind of constantly looking over your shoulder, which makes you nervous and makes you like all more stressed out. So that can happen. And like I said before, you can invest a lot of hours, a lot of hard work, but then your design might not be chosen. And then I also reference burnout and fast paced. So those are some of the cons. Those are the realities of being in graphic design. Okay, so classes, like I said, design theory, like color, space, typography, all of those things I think are really important. And then obviously the classes that teach you how to do work with the software in creating. And all of those three, InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop, they're kind of the main software applications, and they all do something very different. So you have to know all three of them, and it's not like you can just, you know, learn one of them depending on what you do. Volunteer or internship, in the beginning, you just work for free, you know, you try to get your portfolio up. So you offer your services for your friends, your church, you know, your uncle, anyone who needs something and they don't mind asking you for help. And you just, that's how you practice. That's how you just get your feet wet, is to just jump right in and start creating. And in the beginning, no one's really going to want to pay you for that because you're just a beginner. But the more you do it and the more refined you get, eventually they will, after looking at your portfolio, they will start to pay you for your work. And then I put my email just in case anyone has more information or have more questions that they wanted to ask later. You can, or you can get it from Mrs. Han.
For your this advice right here, that's really good. My cousin she's like in her 50s now, but she wanted to switch over to website design. So she offered to do a website for a company that we have, and she did it for free, but it gave her the practice and the experience of making a website.
All right, so so now I'm going to go into some interactive things. This is an example of packaging. I want you guys to look at it and tell me whether you think it's good design or bad design and why. And you can write your comments in the chat.
You can also answer out loud if you want.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hold on. I think that this is not very good design. My reasoning is that they look exactly the same, except for the different
Flavor.
the little label. But other than that, it looks completely the same. They would be really easy to mix up, I think. And other than that, they kind of look pretty plain. They don't really keep the theme going throughout it of like lemon or chocolate. But then also, I don't know what it is. What is that like? What is it? Candy?
It's candy.
Like hard candy?
Candy, sugar-free candy.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should make that more clear. Maybe add a picture of the candy itself, or if it's like a tin, maybe like more coherent colors. I noticed they use a lot of red, but they don't use the same like type of red. They have like a pinker red and then either a darker red or it's the same red with an outline, different fonts, which make it kind of hard to read in different parts, I think.
Yeah, those are all great observations. Obviously, I picked a very obvious one, but yeah, I mean, in a packaging like this, you have the name of the company that created it, you have what it is, and maybe some other information like, you know, the flavor. It looks like there's 2 different flavors. And if you look, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 different types of fonts in one packaging on one label. And you know, the more fonts that you use, the busier it gets, the harder it is to read. And just like you said, Emmy, the Sweet Nothings font with the black outline, yeah, it's on a quick glance, it's kind of hard to read. You're like, is that an H or is that an N? You know?
Yeah.
So all of those things are exactly the reason why it is really bad packaging. Next slide. Now, these are examples of good packaging. Do you guys does someone want to give why some of these is considered better? Okay, well, I'll just go
You can write in the chat too. I mean, I think they just look cooler, but I'm just wondering like if what we think looks cool now will look cheesy like in 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. Cleaner
True.
colors.
I think it just like sticks to like the main idea and the point and doesn't have just a bunch of random stuff on it.
Mhm.
Good point, Jaylene. And Ellie said in the chat, cleaner colors and shapes.
Mhm. Yeah.
A more of a color palette.
Yes. A color palette is like 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 colors that you're going to use throughout your design so that, you don't have like, you're not using like 20 different colors, you know. Yep, clearer and more consistent themes. Yep. I mean, definitely, Christine. I mean, Mrs. Han. Sometimes they have to change the packaging every 10 to 15 years because eventually it gets outdated. It's true. And that's, how graphic design companies stay in business too, because if you started a product, 20 years ago, you're not going to want the same packaging 20 years later. Once in a while, it still lasts and it's still great and you can use it, but you might want to modify it or update it or modernize it. But packaging is something that is going to be changing. If you look at the top 3, I think it's cool that they used illustration as well as those shapes, those pyramids and triangles and rectangles, and just bringing cohesiveness to all of it, and each one of them being a different. I think it's a tin can fish for all of those. I think that this one was taken from Europe. So obviously something that you wouldn't normally see in the United States, but and then even the example on the lower right hand side for the chocolate, you know that the company is called Seed and Bean, and then you can tell by the color of the overall packaging what the flavor might be. And if I've kind of realized that lately, a lot of great design is going on some of those high-end chocolate bars. If you look at any kind of chocolate bars, there it seems like those are all going to the design firms and designers to hire for them. So so yeah, so these are all examples of great, clean, engaging. Great packaging is going to want to engage you, to want you to at least pick it up and take a look at it and say, what is this? Or this looks cool. And yep, I can go to next slide. All right, so this is an example of a bad website. Obviously, most websites are not like this. Most of them have been, at least designed by at least the beginning person or the first round stage of it. But this is probably what most websites look like 20, 30 years ago, because it was really expensive to hire web designers or to hire designers at all. So now they have templates that you can just buy and you can just plug in your own pictures. But, obviously, this is what a bad website, looks like. And believe it or not, there are still people who kind of use this because, they're older, they're usually the older generation, and they don't have connections, or they think it's going to be really expensive to update a design. Megan said my old high school website.
That's true.
This was an example of a good website. You're probably really familiar with this. Seriously, those templates that are being sold and, where you just punch in your own photos and your own, copy, it kind of brings it all up to date. I especially like this one because there's a lot of negative space. Negative space is that white space around. When you put too many things in together, it's kind of hard to see like, what is my eye going towards first? You always want to have like, where does my eye go first, second, and third? So in here, where does your eye first go to? You guys can write your answers in the chat.
I feel like I'm going to give the wrong answer.
Oh, there's no right or wrong answer.
It's called bod.
Mhm. Okay, so most people, it looks like they said the bottle. Oh, Miss Han said leaves and lemons. Megan also said lemons.
Because it's kind of pretty, this little scattering of stuff.
Mhm. Okay, so so yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know the intent of the designer, what they were looking for, but my guess is that they wanted you to look at either the logo first or the bottle first, because it kind of has their logo, their main company, and then also their product. And then from there, your eyes probably go to the sugar-free plus probiotic soda, so you know right away what they're selling. And then it goes right below. If you scroll down, I mean, I just took a screenshot of it, but if you scroll down, it'll go to the founders of this company and their story. So that human element is really important. They want you to see that on the front page. That's why there are pictures of the founders. They're real people creating this real product. It's not like this huge corporation. And then just the colors, the photography is really fresh and light. It's easy on the eyes. And that's what makes, you know, this website very successful. And then on the top, you have all of the menu items of what you can explore through the website. But just on the first glance, it's impactful and clean, easy to read. It has a human element. It's visually pleasing. So those are the things that you would want in a website, in a successful website. Now, this is a whole bunch of logos. And I want you guys to write down what you think are the successful logos in your eyes. And, you know, part of this is all subjective. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Sort of the ones we recognize are probably the ones that are successful.
Sure, that's an element of success, definitely. Recognizability, like that red target icon on the corner. Definitely, we see that and we all know what that means immediately. Without even any words, you know what that means. So it's definitely successful. So some of the bad ones, what can I get some examples of bad ones? I think some people wrote it, but
Olympics one. I think it's supposed to be like 20, like, was it maybe 12?
exactly, exactly. I mean, because
It's
you
so
have,
barely a number though.
right, exactly. You know, Olympics usually has great design, but the company that did London's, I believe it was 2012.
But the computer doctors is great. It's
You can't,
awesome.
you can't
Live
even
across the
tell.
street from them.
You can't even tell what year that was. And it just looks like a whole bunch of
Yeah.
random shapes.
Yeah. The computer
know.
doctors is the best logo though.
Composter doctor.
It's the best one.
The computer doctors, obviously,
The
is
best one.
a
Yeah.
bad logo.
I live across the street from them.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
Feel insulted.
So
sorry.
if you go back,
Uh-huh.
so I would say Verizon is a bad logo because it is recognizable because, you know, we've probably seen it so many on commercials, but really, I don't know the purpose of those red lines. I mean, I guess it's for communication, all
It's
the
fast.
power lines, I guess, yeah, fast. But I've always thought it looked kind of clunky and it looked very haphazard. So that's my personal opinion. I didn't really love the Verizon one. And the New York taxi too. The NYC is too close together. They're kind of blending into each other. And for a city like New York, which is very design, I guess, focused and strong, I thought that logo was just not living up to that standard. Um, Coco Chanel is a great logo because it, obviously incorporates Coco, the double C. And even though you think, well, that's so easy, they just, put the C and then they flipped it and then they merged it. But it has a definite purpose for it. I think it's established as a logo that has stood the test of time. I didn't look up when it was created, but I'm pretty sure it was created, over 50 years ago. And that's the thing about logos. Logos are not going to change every 10 years. They want it can be modified, but they need to last like 20, 30 years. Then that is a very successful logo if it lasts that long. So here are some before and after logos, how they evolve over decades. So the Spotify before, you see the logo on the left. The Spotify is outlined in black and they're all close together. It's a little hard to read. And then when they updated it, they decided to move it to the bottom, easier font to read. It's still close together, but you can definitely read it better. And then they kept the three like half arc marks for probably like radio waves and kept it simple. Starbucks, if you look on the far left, it was very intricate, that original logo of the I forgot which, is it Venus or some god, I guess?
It's a mermaid with two tails.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Mermaid with two tails. There you go. I don't drink Starbucks very often, so but as the years progress, is 1971, 1987, 1992, and then 2011. Now they're finally at a point where they can just use the mermaid in a cleaner format and just use that as their logo, an icon. So the actual icon, that's what it would be called, but then it becomes their whole logo. And then the one right below that is the Volkswagen. You can definitely see how it's evolved over the years. The second one was before World War II. And then the third one was after World War II, I think it says. And then the most recent one is in 2000. So one thing that I will say about logos, people always think that it's so easy, but it's actually the hardest design. You have to encapsulate so much about the company in just one mark. It's very difficult. And usually people see the last design and say, oh, I could have done that. But really that's a result of pages and pages of sketches, trying out this and trying out that, and putting, using this font, using that font, putting, juxtaposing different other elements. It's a really long process and it's very hard. So all those places where you see where they say, I will do your logo for $50. There are a lot of websites now where you can just pay $50 and a whole bunch of probably beginning designers are there and they all create their logo, and then the winning logo, gets that $50. And I mean, it's great practice for the beginning designers, I suppose, but ultimately that kind of hurts the industry because logos are really time consuming. A lot of thought goes into it, and it kind of cheapens that process when, those websites are there, but, they're there. And, a company like AT&T or, Starbucks, they're not going to do the $50 logo. They're going to hire a design firm and pay probably $20,000 to $50,000 for a logo. So that's the high end of it. And obviously, if you're a business, you're starting out and you can't afford $20,000 for a logo, then you will probably use that $50 website. But, all in all, it is one of the most difficult forms of design.
All right,
Next slide.
2 more
yes.
slides.
This was a brochure, and it's an example of a bad brochure. Mainly because the type is so hard to read. There's so many things going on in the background, and the type, which looks like a serif script font for the heads, it's just really hard on the eyes. And then all the type that has, the information for each part is even smaller, and it looks like it's shadowed and making it very difficult to read. So, and it's so busy. I guess at least it's in sections. It's compartmentalized, but overall, I wouldn't say this is a very successful design. And then the next slide. So this is pages from an annual report. And what an annual report is, every company that has a board of directors and investors and people that have given them money to start a business, they give a report saying, this is what we did for this past year. This is how much money we raised. This is how much money we gave. This is how many products we sold. So they are accountable to the shareholders to provide a report. Now, most reports can be really boring, a lot of type, a lot of information, and someone who's receiving that report is not going to want to read through it all. But this is an exceptional annual report. It's from Tom's. And I want you guys to kind of take a look at it and tell me why you think it's considered a great design. Oh, great. Great observation, Megan. Definitely use of great negative space to draw your eyes to what's important. Oh, great observation, Ellie. Yes, the pictures are moving. Aren't they great pictures? They have so much humanness about them. And we really need that in design. It's not just all about, the fancy design things that you see, but we definitely need to incorporate the humanness. They don't have crazy colors. Tom's, if you know the logo, it has that blue. And so they've used that blue throughout, and not to just make it, kind of boring, like all of that color, but they incorporated those stripes that you see on the Tom's logo and highlighting certain parts of the photography using their color and the stripes. The text isn't that intrusive yet. It's very well organized. Even if you can't read it because it's a small screenshot, you can tell it's well organized type. It leads the reader from one point A to point B, and easily guides them into the information. The graph is really easy and clean to read as well. You want something that is just not going to be like, what is that again? What is this bar supposed to be? The easier that it communicates what you're trying to communicate, the better it is. Another thing that I noticed about this was the CEO's picture. Usually you see kind of like a picture of a stiff, usually a male in a suit, portrait photograph. But here you have, she's looking upward, and she doesn't have that, that fake smile, but it's kind of an unusual expression. And yes, it's not centered. It's just not typical. She, is looking upward, probably for looking hopeful into the future, looking upward to what they want to do next year. I thought that was really clever, the way they did that, just not using the normal standard of all the other annual reports. A little peculiar, but kind of still friendly and not standoffish. And then it says a note from a rebel optimist. So even the headline that goes with it doesn't say a note from our CEO, which is what it would normally say, a letter from our CEO or our president, but it says a rebel optimist. So even the copy that's used, it's just all different. I love the pictures. Some of them, like, like think Emmy said, they're just very moving and poignant pictures. And that's what a good
I didn't
design.
say that. That was me.
Ellie.
Okay, Ellie. Yes, Ellie. Great job, Ellie.
Emmy said it was boring, and I want to know why you thought it was boring.
I don't like it. I think it's too organized. It's like, I get, it's probably not supposed to seem, I guess, fun, but I don't really want to read it. And it's like, this is probably just me personally. I feel like I liked the other one a lot. If it was easier to read, I think it has a lot of potential.
Well, this one's not a website, it's like a year-end report. So compared to how boring it could have been, I think that's what Miss Lee's showing, is that they took a super boring year-end report and they made it more interesting to look through.
Right, yeah. What is it about?
It's about what Tom's has done. So I'm going to forward the link to Mrs.
Oh,
Hahn
it's right there. It's so little.
so that you guys can look through the whole report. But yeah, it's what they've accomplished. And they give out shoes to the third world country. They give out glasses. They've also been giving out water, clean water to some of the countries. So their mission is a little bit different. It's not only about making profit for themselves, but they wanted to give to other countries and other communities. So they're trying to tell their shareholders, this is what we've accomplished, and this is what we hope to accomplish in the next year. And that's what, that's what an annual report is. But yeah, like I said, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Someone might say, I love this, and the other one would be like, it's okay. It's hard, but we want to definitely make sure that the message that we're communicating is clear and functional, as well as, beautiful. I'm here for any questions. If you guys have any questions. Oh, it's 12:55 already.
We'll take like 3 questions. This was awesome. It was so helpful. It made me look at websites and things with a slightly more informed eye. You know me, Judy, I have no eyes. I like when she talks about fonts or this font or that font, I have no clue. I mean, they all look the same. I mean, I can sort of see that they look slightly different, but I'm not like that person who's like, oh, Oh, Ellie has a great question. What's your opinion on Canva?
Okay, I'm assuming that's a new software, right? Is it?
It's like an app that lets you put together like things, flyers, brochures, Instagram posts. It kind of designs it for you, helps you design.
Yeah, I think you can use it for good practice for sure. I know that a lot of the future marketing is going all towards the phone, since we're on it so much. So that's probably a great app for that without having to open or buy Photoshop. and, creating it in Illustrator and Photoshop and all of that. So I think for what it wants to achieve for that kind of design for on your phone, a small area, it's probably, sufficient. Again, it's not the app that's going to make it a good design, but it's going to be your ideas, what you put into it, and how you're going to use that app for your design. But if you want to go into it for a full-time career, those other 3 apps are still the main apps that, most all design firms use.
Any other questions? I think a lot of you guys need these design tips when you do your slideshows for your assignments, right?
Although I didn't design my slideshow, mostly because Mrs. Hahn asked me very last minute, like, can you do this weekend instead?
Yeah.
Or this Monday instead? So,
That's right.
but I did feel pressure, like I should design my slides because I'm just using whatever you put there, but I didn't have any time. So this is what I could do.
You did a great job. But when students do slideshows for classes, I always tell them, like, make it visually appealing. Like, don't give me like big paragraphs that I can't read on it and kind of, stuff all this stuff on there.
Mhm. That's true. That's graphic design too. If you put too much cluttered stuff, it's going to be hard to keep your the attention of your audience. So
What's corny most of the time, Trevor?
I think Megan said that. Oh,
Yeah, our slideshows. Oh, yeah. Yeah, his name is Trevor.
okay.
He just has
Sorry.
Megan on his thing.
Yeah.
What age did you start?
I started in college. I was an English major, was gonna be a teacher. And midway through my college, I decided I love graphic design. So I took an internship, a free internship, and I took some classes at Santa Monica College while I was at UCLA and started building my portfolio then. And then that, I graduated. I didn't apply for the design degree at UCLA because they were closing it down at that time. And it was going to be too hard to start all over. So that's how I started at age, I don't know, I guess at age 19-ish, like right in the middle of college.
That's cool. I know a lot of people in this advisory are sort of artistically inclined. So even if you don't go into it as a profession, I think it's cool to know some, like, even just listening to what Miss Lee said about like what looks good and what doesn't look good. And because we're all probably going to have to design, who knows, websites and Instagram posts or, whatever that in our lifetime, even, that we don't want to hire someone. So having an eye for what looks good is really a good, a helpful skill, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, last question, Emmy.
How often do you? How often do you consult color theory, and what are your favorite color combinations for like websites and stuff?
How often?
Like, how often do you use color theory, and then like what like color combinations do you think work well for like websites?
Well, for any design project that you do, you're gonna need to use, color palette and color theory. And you want to use, kind of like a bold color and maybe not as bright color. I mean, that's really very subjective and it depends on the client, it depends on the website. But you definitely, for any design project, you want to use color theory And it'll be very different palettes, because in your portfolio, you don't want your first job to have all the same colors as your 5th job, because then it just, when you're showing that, they're thinking, oh, those are your favorite colors and you don't want to use any other colors. So color theory is really important. You kind of look at trends. You look at what are you designing and how can you utilize color to best communicate. And then sometimes it's the client's preference too. Like the logo, if their logo has a certain color and they definitely want to use that, you use that and you try to look up other colors that will be complementary to it and not compete with it, and in developing a color palette. So in every design project, you're going to develop a color palette and try to think about colors in those ways.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Lee. Thank you for giving us your time and your expertise.
Experience.
Yes, we appreciate it. And I'll let you go. And then I'll just be here also if anyone wants to ask me any questions regarding anything else. But maybe we can just say a little thank you in the chat or out loud, and then you guys will be on your way. But I'll be here. So stay here if you need any questions.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Hi, Judy. Thank you so much for coming.
Sure.
Anyone have any issues with their